Well, Doug Kezirian, ESPN sports betting analyst, co-host of the Behind the Bets podcast, joins us here on Big Board Sports 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Doug, Roger Weiland, Chris Honorado in Albany. Good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you guys. Sorry about that.
Morning, Doug. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate you coming on. We were just going over the Bovada NFL over and under win totals, and we're running down our regional teams of interest. And let's start with New England and see what you go. New England Jets or New England Giants, and then we'll get to the Jets and the Bills. Is 11 about right for the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with a lot of these. They all feel about right because they're not in the business of being wrong often. And I don't know, last time you guys been to Vegas, I still see casinos going up instead of coming down. So usually they're right, but it's funny. At some point, the Patriots are going to be not amazing, right? At some point. But the problem is with streaks, if a team's covered 5 straight, 6 straight, or whatever it is, you can only be wrong once if you ride the streak, and you can only be right. You can only be wrong once. You can be right a bunch of times, right? So that's the thing with riding streaks. Now, with the Patriots and the season win total, it's tricky because it's not about just winning the division. If it was about winning the division, I think we'd all pick yes. But something, at some point they're going to run out of steam and they're going to hit their wall overnight or whatever you want to call it.
And I think there is something to be said about some friction between coach and Brady and owner. I think there is, and I think maybe every year it kind of ratchets itself up a little bit, and maybe one of these years it does affect how they perform on the field. It's not going to affect them winning the division, but I agree at some point it might not be 11 wins. It could be less than that. You think the Giants improve from 3 to 7, although Eli Manning, after what they've done here with the backup quarterback, Davis Webb, now a practice squad player on the Jets, if you didn't hear that news. Can they go from 3 to 7 this year?
I actually think they can, and I think the Giants are going to be a lot better. Like, I've mocked people in the past about the Giants Kool-Aid and all that nonsense, but I think this is a spot where you can back them. I like them in week 1, to be honest, and I think they're going to be a much better team. I mean, I think just new culture, all that stuff. I don't think it's much to ask, but it's also a very competitive division. I think someone's going to stink in that division. It could be the Giants, or it could be the Redskins maybe. Someone's not going to click in that division. I haven't put my finger on who it's going to be, but everyone's expecting competitiveness, but someone's going to stink, and I think it's one of those two. But I think the Giants are not going to be the one that stinks.
Giants over the Jags week 1, maybe. Doug Kezirian with us here on Big Board Sports and 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Check him out on Twitter at Doug ESPN. All right, Doug, I want to get your kind of general take here. Who is there an over-under win total number out there that you would just hammer, that you think is that Vegas has this one wrong, I'm going after this one because it's a good bet at the end of the day?
Hammer's a strong word. We have a thing on the podcast where we do stop hammer time.
Yeah.
I am fading the Jaguars. I don't really think okay, so a lot of times we always assume the best outcome of something, right? Like, oh, I should have married that girl, or I should have done that and was taken that job, or whatever it is. And we always assume the best outcome. And everyone is assuming the best outcome with the Jaguars because it's been a team that's been trending up. But I think if we look at the why, well, the 2 best quarterbacks in their division got hurt, right?
Yep.
Andrew Luck and Deshaun Watson. So if that's happening and they're back this year, there's going to be some regression. Now, the Jags did win 10 games last year, and their over-under is 9. So it's not like the over-under is 10.5. But I just think there's like a giant sort of regression that we should expect. Aaron Schatz, the Football Outsiders, joined my podcast recently and talked about how they were 10-2 last year when they scored first. They were built to protect leads. What happens when they don't? Also, in their rankings and metrics they were the number 1 team in pass defense. Of all the teams in their database that have ranked number 1 in pass defense, they had by far the worst run defense. So the defense is a little smoke and mirrors. Again, playing against bad quarterbacks in the division that are presumably healthier with Luck and Watson. So I just think this Jaguars team with Blake Bortles not being exactly an all-pro quarterback is going to have some. They're going to lose some of the games that went. Some of the things that went right last year are going to go wrong. I would say the Jags under 9 would be a play for me.
Okay.
Doug, do you agree or disagree with the Jets and the Bills at 6 wins?
I agree. I think the Bills are going to really struggle this year. If I were to bet them, I'd bet them under. And I know 6 wins isn't enough, but I don't see 7. I don't see losing that pick at 7 and 9. Right? Like, take 7 wins to beat me. Who knows what's going to happen with Sean McCoy in the NFL investigation? Right? There's always an unknown there with Roger Goodell in the league front office. But I just don't think Josh Allen is the second coming of Jim Kelly like everyone wants him to be. I think there's going to be some growing pains, and we obviously see that with Peterman starting week 1. So I would definitely go Bills under on that one. And with the Jets, I don't know. They really overachieved last year. They lost so many tough games. People last year were talking 0-16. So I think there's more kind of want to on that roster than people want to give them credit for. Now the question is, will it translate into wins? Well, they played the Bills twice. I'm actually a believer in the Dolphins, but most people aren't. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets win at home in that game. But, the Jets aren't going to the playoffs either. So these are tough. These are splitting hairs here.
All right, Doug, how about on the Browns? Because Roger and I were just kicking this one around. The over-under we've got here on the table this morning, but I know it's different at some sports books, is the number 5. They didn't win any last year. Roger's saying he's read things that have the Browns at maybe 8 this year. Where do you put Cleveland in all this?
Yeah, in Vegas they're 6.
Okay.
I don't buy it, right? So they didn't win a damn game last year. They're supposed to win 6 to break even in Vegas and go over Bovada line. Look, there's some people I really, really respect who think the Browns are going to take a big step, and I get it. They led the league in plus-minus turnover differential, as in the worst, right? So they were minus 28, I believe, 28 or 29. The next worst, just to put that in perspective, was minus 17. So you see the gap and how distinct, and it's a huge upgrade in quarterback, whether it's Taylor or Mayfield. I get all that. But still, you're going from 0 to 6 wins. It's not 0 to 3. And I think the Browns are vastly improved. Their defense is good. They lost 4 games by a field goal or less. So they're right there. I am not going to bet under because I think they're right around that number. I do get it. But I also am not going to take my tax income and go place a bet on the Browns over. I think there's other things on the board to do.
What about the Super Bowl champions, Philadelphia? They've at 10. Are you over or under that?
Yeah, I'm going to go under there. 10.5 seems pretty high for a competitive division, especially when they don't have Carson Wentz starting the year. I think that's again, this goes back to everything went right. I know Wentz is absolutely fantastic, but I think the division is better because I think the Giants are healthier and better. I think the Cowboys are going to take a big step up. I like the Cowboys and Colts. You mentioned, we talked about the Jags under. I like Cowboys and Colts over because I think those teams are much better because they're much healthier. And that's why I think there's going to be just more parity. Now, the Eagles were a juggernaut last year. They were awesome at home in particular. And when Wentz was firing on all cylinders, they were unbeatable. But still, 11 wins is a lot in a tough division when you don't have Wentz to start the season. That line in week 1 is down to like 2 or something. So they could easily start 0-1. So I would definitely go under on the Eagles.
Doug, I want to ask you about what one of our U.S. Senators, Chuck Schumer, talked about last week in a second. But first, do you have a Super Bowl futures pick that you believe brings good value with it?
I really don't. And this is important for people to kind of learn. So we talked about these over-unders, and then we have talked about point spreads and over-unders in the games themselves. And those are what's called two-way betting. So you can bet both sides, right? Two-way betting. But in the Super Bowl odds, those are one-way betting. You can only bet the Patriots at 6-1 or the Steelers at 12-1. You can't bet 1-12 if the Steelers do not win the Super Bowl. So two-way betting is much fairer when the one-way betting is not. So there's nothing on the board where I think it's really good value versus just betting them individually. We see a lot of these, teams when the playoffs begin at like 8-1. Well, why not just bet that team in the money line every game, roll it over, and you might get better payout because of the one-way betting market. So there's nothing. There's no like super long shot that I love where there actually is value, which is a good word that you asked me about. Now, you want to take a flyer on a team and stuff, like Maybe. I mean, look, the Eagles, you could have got great value once went down last year. So there's all these teams that you could take flyers on. But, again, the one-way betting market really doesn't interest me a ton.
All right, where are we with New York State? I know you saw the comments that Chuck Schumer made last week. Your colleague Darren Ravel wrote a piece for ESPN.com. How will leagues kind of regulate sports betting now that it is legal or will be in most states? What were your thoughts on what Schumer had to say? Was there any real substance in there that you took away?
Well, my concern is that it's a little bit of the blind lead in the blind on this, and that's the concern. I mean, you have Al Leiter speaking to Congress. What people need to realize is the Supreme Court did not invent sports betting in May. All the Supreme Court did was remove a federal ban and allow for legalization. Sports betting has been going on forever, and it will continue to go on forever, whether we want to accept it or not. So you do it either legally or illegally. I mean, there's some estimates of upwards of $400 billion bet in the United States illegally each year. Think about that, $400 billion, B as in boy. So for them to say that there is all this, like, underground and the sports betting is now creating all this concern is just not true. Like, college athletes have been vulnerable for fixing games since the beginning of time. They will continue to be. The more monitoring and the more legalization there is, the better it is for everyone. Sportsbooks want fair games. They don't want fixes. Donaghy was not betting in Vegas. He was betting with illegal bookies. So as states become legalized with, the technology that's in 2018 and beyond, you can track all this behavior and track line movement, track irregular bets. It's better to get this stuff above board. So I just disagree with the senator on some of this stuff, and I don't know if it's a scare tactic or, people just need to be more informed about this industry that is new to legalization, but not new to our society.
Yeah.
Doug, appreciate a few minutes. Always fun. People ready to roll here with week one of the NFL season. That I can tell you, and we'll be back in touch, I'm sure, throughout the course of the season.
You got it, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you,
Doug.
Doug.
It's a pleasure. Good luck to everyone out there. The Christmas has come. The football season is here.
Yes,
Gonna
it has.
need it.
It
Gonna
has.
need all that luck you got.
Question is, am I going to sit home and bet on Sunday? That's the question,
Yes.
Doug, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
All right.
All right.
Take care, guys.
That is Doug Kezirian.